Good evening, family and friends of Grace Lutheran Church. I want to thank Lauren for running the camera for me this evening. I'm supposed to be writing an essay on one of the Latin phrases we're supposed to learn, homo incurvatus insi, but I haven't been able to sort of consider it or think about it because I'm talking about cremation so much. Now, we're building at Grace Lutheran Church, we're building a columbarium, and obviously the fact that we're building a columbarium would tell you that I don't have a big problem with cremation, or would probably not be building it. And still there's a few people that wonder, should or should we not be cremated? What are the theological implications of that? In the olden days, Israel pretty much always buried their dead, and they generally, culturally, they would do it within 24 hours. They would, first of all, they would wash the body. They would then wrap it in cloth or linen. If you were somebody of means or had a little bit of wealth, they would also anoint the body with certain spices and oils and perfumes. The body would then be carried in a briar to the tomb, placed reverently into the tomb, and then sealed up. Now, sometimes they used holes, and the person would be buried with a marker so that everybody knew where it was. But then at other times, again, if you remember the story of Jesus, of course, if you were wealthy or a person of note, you would then go into a cave, even a cave that had been hewn out of a rock by hand. And what would happen is that the body would lay there for a year. After the year, the family would open the tomb, go in, and clean up what remained. They would then take all the bones and put them in bags and reverently set them aside and wait for the next burial. Some have had an opposition to cremation, and this opposition to cremation has never really been theological. God never really tells us exactly how to deal with our dead outside of the understanding that the dead will rise. Therefore, it's important that we treat the body with the respect and also bear witness to that whole body resurrection that we make ourselves known to be. Some people, and this is just my opinion, you don't see a real big ruckus being raised up as far as cremation. For the church has always practiced cremation to a certain extent, whether it's the cremation of enemies or the cremation of bodies being infected by plague or other disease. But you don't see a real big rise in opposition to cremation until you get to what I consider to be the Enlightenment, when certain people begin to cremate their dead. And it's not so much that they cremate the dead, but then they scatter the ashes. They take the ashes from the place of cremation and they scatter them abroad. And what they were doing culturally was saying that this person is now dead. They are gone. And what they're doing is doing that in opposition to the biblical theology of the resurrection from the dead. So in the scattering of ashes, they say, this body is never going to rise. At that point, you get the Christian church saying, no, we're not going to allow cremation because of what it might say to people. In the modern era, we generally don't see cremation being used this way. You rarely sort of see people who are against the Christian faith then cremate their loved ones and scatter their ashes. When they do scatter ashes, it's usually done out of other things. It's not done out of an opposition to Christian theology. So just to sort of nail down a point of this, when we're talking about how we should be treating our dead, there's two principles that we need to remember. That we need to do it with the utmost of respect. It needs to be done in a timely fashion, but also to bear witness to that resurrection theology that we hold so dear, that comes to us all the way from the days of Abraham, that Christians and Jews have always held to the idea that the dead will rise in Christ. couple of verses for you to look up if you'd like. Jeremiah chapter 34, verse 5. Matthew 27, verse 59. John 11:44. John 12:7. And Acts 9, verse 37. If you have any questions, let me know. Thank you all so very much for listening. Bye now.